feel safe. Yeah, finally, yeah, we did it. They were sleeping and the police came to me and he was saying that, hey, you guys want to go to Austria? I said, yeah.
People are coming and we give just water and some food, and we are trying to help.
This is a serious and big problem we have to face now in Europe, and I believe football has a kind of responsibility.
Welcome back to the 7th edition of the Alarpa podcast. Maria, how are you?
Very well, thank you. You?
I'm good, thank you. So this week we are looking at something that has been in the news lately, and that topic is, Maria?
The refugee crisis.
The refugee crisis, exactly. So obviously those who are listening at home in their cars or on their phones, I'm sure you've been following this closely or not so closely in the news over the last few weeks. You probably have your own opinion. We have seen people talking very positively about it, welcoming the refugees with open arms, others a bit more critical and hesitant to do so. So, Maria, I take it you're a learned, accomplished, intelligent, educated person. You've been following the coverage, have you not?
Yeah, of course I have.
Of course you have. Okay, so there's a sense of duty there. You've been following it. You feel it's an important issue, I believe.
Yeah, of course it's an important issue, and well, I think it was an issue already long before, the latest events, really. So
that is true, because we are looking, and in the second part of the show, because yesterday, listeners, were dividing the show up by the magic of musical markers into part 1 and part 2, and in part 2 we'll be looking at football, and Buffon, another Italian footballer, said the same in a press conference. He said that the migrant problem has been something that's not a problem, but the fact of people coming in, kind of escaping worse situations and seeking a better life into more prosperous European nations is something that we've always been maybe aware of, but we haven't really spoken about. And this is kind of a watershed moment because it has been covered quite a lot on all the social medias and also as well in the newspapers and between people as well talking about it. So, like, is there one characteristic from all the coverage that stands out for you? Are you happy with the coverage at large, or do you think it's taking the wrong tone, or what's your opinion about it?
well, the thing that I found most annoying was that this was an issue that has been ongoing for years, and then obviously it's got especially worse during the summer. But then it was only when we saw these really tragic pictures of these kids that washed up on a Turkish beach and all this. That was really dramatic, but it was kind of like a like a switch. Everybody suddenly started realizing what had been going on, and it's just a bit sad that it takes something as dramatic as that to get people to actually pay attention.
But what worries me about this is that yes, we had this shocking image, but do you think that because people's interest was only alerted by the shocking image, that it's not a deep lying interest in it, and that easy come easy go, basically this interest sprang out of nowhere maybe and can dissipate quite as quickly? Do you think that's a genuine concern?
Well, I think that's definitely the case, and it usually happens with this sort of crisis, and people are really moved by a certain image, and then slowly forget about it.
Well, I think as well the problem is, it is a very complex issue. For example, we saw the Syrian man who was tripped in Hungary by a reporter, and he made headlines recently because he's been moved to Spain. He's a football coach back in Syria, and now he's gotten a job or has some kind of connection with Getafe Football Club, in Madrid. But for example, people are kind of contrasting the Hungarian reaction to it, and then with the German reaction to it. Well, people are forgetting now as well that Germany has closed its borders now a little bit, and the police and the soldiers are kind of controlling the influx of people more closely. And what people forget as well is that Hungary is a poor country itself. So
well, I think there's an argument that a distinction should be made between the states and the people in them.
Yeah.
And this is something that people are trying to argue, that it hasn't been, nothing has been done until people have sort of like complained about it and have raised their concerns to their respective governments and so on.
Exactly. Yeah. I think as well, there has been a lot of good work done, and obviously we both support the fact that these people are being welcomed in their new countries because they deserve to find a life in a more peaceful place, because at the moment they're coming from a war-torn region. But what I'd be interested to see is how this kind of this story unfolds like in the next 5-10 years, because right now there is a lot of goodwill, but if the economy in different places keeps going down, will people resent them having houses or work? I wonder how their long-term integration into these communities is going to go, but time will only tell that. Nobody can speculate about that.
Yeah.
But for the moment, they are being welcomed quite broadly, aren't they, by a lot of people?
Well, something else that I'm worried about is this idea that suddenly people, like you see it when you're on the metro, for example, like people used to give, even in Madrid, people used to give, I would say sometimes suspicious looks to Arabs and so on, and now there's even friendly faces, and everybody seems to be thinking are these refugees, and as if they were somehow more respectable, which of course they are, but so are the people that were already here, of course.
Well, I see your point. I think it is a defining.
It's some kind of hypocrisy.
It could be hypocrisy, or it could be a moment where people's attitudes change, and that's what we don't know. We just have to wait for that.
It would be fantastic if that applied to everybody else, and suddenly people realize that the people that they have around them are not just immigrants, but are people like themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully, that would be fantastic, but.
Or it could be, it might be changing attitude only to a select group of people, because I think, having lived in Madrid for a while, it is a fantastic place, but it does have a problem with race relations, I think, and then how it views, its immigrants and its African immigrants as well, so.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's kind of to me, it's no use from the point of view integration and creating sort of a multicultural city, and with tolerance and so on. It's no use just focusing on people from a certain country and
Exactly.
ignoring everybody else.
Because some of these immigrants might not be coming from a war-torn region, but poverty is another social issue that drives people to move.
Yeah, this has been something very commented on TV about the difference between people that are getting away from a war zone and people that are just migrating to get a better life. But you know, of course, there is an argument to be made that people that escape from war are protected by international law and so on,
Yeah.
and have a priority. But I think there's an argument to be made about all the factors like what you're saying, about like poverty and even the pressures in other countries from a country having a war.
Well, exactly. But also as well, I mean, I think there's a lot of movement in Europe in general. I mean, the French people are, I think, the highest concentration of people in London who are not English are French. Spanish people move quite a lot, and of course Irish people move quite a lot. My point is, we are, to some extent migrants as well because of the economy or because of seeking a better fortune, but we are more protected by European Union law or our base is a higher base that we're starting from than those coming from African countries, for example, that are arriving into Madrid. And for example, I mean, this migrant crisis was starting even before Syria with people coming into Calais and the Mediterranean in these boats, that...
well, it's a problem that it's a situation that has been happening in Spain for years.
Exactly. And I think people should realize that we're not so different really, because the same forces move us, but just to varying extents. We are victims of circumstance or victims of the economy, but again, there are people who suffer from it to a greater degree than other people do. And like I am economic migrant as well to an extent, but a very lucky one. So I think people should be aware of how vulnerable people are to circumstance, and there's people who move into their country because of circumstance. Who are making a great sacrifice and leaving their homeland. I mean, there was a big worry when Britain temporarily allowed a lot of Romanians into their country. And they sent a news crew over to Romania, and people were like, well, we don't want to live there. I mean, we're happy to live in Romania. I mean, and then, if we go there, we're there to work, So there's a general fear from people that, they're there to take and rob and steal, which is only put forth by, people like Britain First or parties that are, very anti-immigration in general. But I think the ordinary person, the person who's reading the newspaper on the metro, has to be aware that they could be forced to move to a country to better their situation, and the people that are coming from African countries are doing just the same. But that's not part of the media narrative at the moment. The media narrative is these heroic people escaping a war situation, which is what they are. I mean, they are making a huge sacrifice, but it's only part of the story. There are other migrants as well who could be left behind. And also as well, the groundswell of optimism, I think, might not be, well, hopefully it's more permanent and deeper rooted than just a superficial reaction to stuff that's happening in the newspaper. So I don't know, do you have anything else to add?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, well, we're not finished there yet though, podcast listeners, because obviously this is the El Arpa podcast. We are Madrid's #1 English academy, and we are the #1 teachers in that academy. So / the only teachers in that academy. So like from a teaching perspective, do you have any experience of teaching refugees English?
Yeah, I have some experience of teaching refugees when I was living in the UK. Yeah.
Okay, so can you fill us in a little bit on that?
Well, there were just some classes that were offered as part of like teaching practice, and people just went there and had classes for free, and for us it was very interesting. I mean, beyond the actual practicing teaching people, they had some really fascinating stories about reasons why they were in the UK, and they were very eager to learn and eager to adapt and integrate. And
was the dynamic of the class, was it different from like a regular class, of people who are just studying for exams or for other reasons, I mean, and even as a teacher teaching it, I mean, was it harder to teach? Were you teaching different things, or was it like a normal class for you?
Well, I mean, I was teaching a different way because obviously you had to account for like many different like cultural sensitivities and so on.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, for example, the Irish government right now are focusing a lot on teaching English to Syrian refugees that they're taking in. I read a government report where they said, for example, a lot of these migrants have limited time to study because they're maybe looking for work or dealing with the bureaucracy of the country. trying to get legalized or whatever else, or finding accommodation. So there's a run on from that as well. There's like a lack of energy. So I mean, most of their time is maybe spent trying to establish themselves or survive, and then English might be a secondary concern because the other things are so time consuming, and they might be so tired when they're finished doing those things.
Yeah.
And also as well in the class you can have huge differences in level. Have you experienced that?
Well, I was gonna say I kind of experienced the opposite thing, because people were so keen on finding work very quickly, and they knew that certain jobs they couldn't access unless they spoke some English, so they were really eager, and some of them were making a huge effort to learn English and to improve. So some of them were working all night and basically coming straight into class.
So they really wanted to learn.
Yeah, they were very motivated.
Another thing they mentioned was a tip for teachers. For example, don't focus on grammar exercises. Focus on speaking, because they'll be speaking a lot, and also as well focus on situations in which they'll use their English, so job interviews or other kind of scenarios that they're going to be exposed to at the very start. So kind of focus in on those areas in particular. Is that a good tip?
I think that's a good tip, but especially, obviously culture is important as a part of any other language class, but probably for refugees in particular, who often come from, countries that are culturally far apart from European countries, I think it's particularly important to.
And they also say as well you should focus on the speaking exercises, because they can tell stories about themselves, and it helps in their reinvention, because they're kind of reinventing themselves in the new country, and that's something that should happen in the classroom as well.
I remember, some of them, when they were asked to tell their experiences. So, for example, a moment where they were scared in their lives, and we would say something like, a time when I thought I lost my wallet or something like that, and they were telling really gruesome stories about moments where they were genuinely scared, like they feared for their lives or the lives of their family. And in that respect, it kind of helped them, share it and feel better. Okay,
so it's like therapeutic almost.
In a way, I guess.
Okay, so I think the teacher in a class with such students has almost a different profile almost. You're kind of helping social integration as well, not just the language integration.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's very important, and it's, for me it was a privilege to be in that position, really.
Okay, well, folks, that's the end of part 1. Join us momentarily for part 2. Welcome back to part 2. Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
Woo! Part 2. Okay, so we're talking about something connected to part 1, but a little bit lighter, looking at the football aspect of this thing. So, Maria, I can tell she's wearing a Real Madrid jersey at this moment with her name on the back of it, Maria, number 10. So, are you a football fan? That's a no. Okay, so you're not a football fan. You're a fair weather fan. When there's a World Cup final in Spain around it, you'll watch the game. So that's okay. But have you also come across in your coverage the football reaction to this refugee thing at the moment? Have you come across any of that, or have you chosen to ignore it?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't chosen to ignore it. Just give it as much importance as everything else. But no, we've seen lots of reactions, in the stadium.
It's very vague, very, very vague. Okay, so I'm going to take off the mantle here. as the resident football guy. But no, it's okay. You're a basketball fan. When basketball opens its doors to refugees, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, okay, just
Okay.
get on with it.
We heard 2 recordings of football-related people talking about the refugee crisis, and I mean, I love football. You know this. I love football. Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi,
Of course,
for sure.
good answer. Okay, so on that we can agree. But I think one of the reasons football has been so open to it is because the roots of football are, beautiful. I mean, it truly is the world game. You see sports becoming more global. The Rugby World Cup's on at the moment, obviously, and it's becoming even more popular in lots of countries. But I think football is truly a global sport, and because you think of the countries where it's developed, like Brazil, how did it get there? An English guy came on a boat with some footballs, and it developed from that. Barcelona as well were founded. It's literally like that. You're laughing. It's like, how could that happen? It's so simple, but that's what happened. It's the same with Barcelona with Gamper, Mr. Gamper, a Swiss businessman, and also an Englishman as well, who kind of helps set up the club there. So in terms of how clubs and national games developed, immigrants and migrants have been a huge part of that story, And ESPN wrote a great article about this as well. They said football doesn't have any political value. Not that it doesn't have any political value, but it doesn't normally mix with football. And it's true, because even Barcelona, to go back to Barcelona, are seen as a politicised club, and they're the badge of an independent Catalonia. Okay, so but they make the point that it doesn't have a political responsibility, but it does have a social responsibility, and it's always had that social responsibility. Football has been very active in different social elements. In different, for example, Manchester City have put a lot of money back into their local area. Barcelona, if you go to the museum and you follow the club, they talk a lot about that kind of stuff as well. And now this is the greatest kind of social issue of our time at the moment, and I think it makes sense that football, having its fine tradition of social inclusion and social work, is kind of taking up this issue in such a big way. And because football, I think, fundamentally is a grassroots game compared to other sports. I mean, baseball, you need equipment. Rugby, you need equipment. But football, you don't. Ronaldo grew up playing football, with very poor resources, but you're still able to do that, because football fundamentally is quite a simple game. And I think, what reflects that simplicity and its grassroots nature is that fact. It's not just the clubs at the higher levels and the players talking about it, but it's the fans, off their own back and their own initiative, bringing in flags to the stadium and helping in a more proactive way as well, in a direct way, by giving out food and supplies to those people. So I think football, more than any other sport, kind of lends itself to this kind of action. So that's why I've always loved football, and why I think I love football even more right now. And it's true, even like in Australia, this Australian game football league is taking off right now. And the coach of the Australian national team is a son of Greek immigrants, So and a lot of players in the past have been Greek or from Eastern Europe who've built that game up in that country. And again, going back to my earlier point in part one about how we're all victims of circumstance, and we're all to some extent economic migrants. A lot of, like, right now, Del Piero, he was in Australia. Stephen Gerrard's gone to the United States. These are immigrants who are helping to develop the game as well. And if we celebrate them, we have to remember very often it's been the poor immigrants that we don't remember who helped build the game in the first place in those countries. So football has a lot of historical ties to immigration and to immigrants, and has benefited a lot from it. And it's nice to see football give that back. I think that's the most important point to remember. So politicians might be just untrustworthy, but footballers are always right. Always.
Sure.
Always. Okay, so that's my spiel over. So any last anecdotes, jokes, tongue teasers, testers, riddles, or any last comments on this issue that we've covered in this podcast, Maria?
No.
Okay, all right, well, let's wrap it up then. So this is Enda from the Ep7 podcast. We gave you a mammoth one today. I think it's over 20 minutes now. So bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.